The last Republican president who was not corrupt was Eisenhower. Every single one ever since has been really dangerously corrupt. And that starts with Eisenhower's vice president, Richard Nixon, who became president later. Richard Nixon, have you heard of Watergate?
It's true.
The guy nearly went to prison. And he was only saved from prison by his vice president, Gerald Ford, who was monumentally corrupted himself. And both Nixon and Ford were fierce opponents of the civil rights movement. They took over the Supreme Court in the early 1970s, and that is a huge part of why democracy is almost totally ended right now, is because of Nixon and Ford and the things that they did before Jimmy Carter came in. Jimmy Carter was a man of the highest integrity, zero question whatsoever about his ethics. He lived his principles, he lived his faith, very decent guy, and he got one term, right? Nixon and Reagan got the two biggest presidential electoral votes of all time. And they got that just for being super racist opponents of Martin Luther King's legacy. These are very corrupt people. This Reagan had to go back and look at Iran-Contra and all the scandals that Reagan had. A massive number of Reagan cabinet members had to leave. When people say both sides, I'm like, which planet are you on? Where are you getting your information from? And invariably, they're getting their information from TikTok, YouTube. They're not reading any books. Ignorance is not bliss. It makes you do dumb, crazy stuff. Listen, as a scientist, when scientists or mathematicians have a debate, my dad was a math professor, I'm a physicist. When scientists have a debate, the person who says the most usually loses. A person can win a mathematical or scientific debate with one word, and everyone in the room, the Nobel Prize winners and people like that, just throws up their hands and says, you win. You know, debates among people who are really expert in logic is very, very different from what you're seeing on TikTok and YouTube with a white guy talking fast, misinforming you, deceiving you, misleading you, lying to you. That's not actual solid logical information. And a different way to think about this is, if you're in horrible pain and you need help, are you going to the doctor who talks the fastest? Or are you going to the person you have reason to believe has a solid scientific education? Would you go to RFK Jr. for any type of treatment? Corruption is not the same on both sides.
Right.
It hasn't been for generations. And when I hear this both sides stuff, you know, we need more people running for office, more young people doing what this young man is doing here. He's informing himself, he's paying attention. You know, this is what we need. We need more people running for office, and we need term limits.
Yes.
Term limits.
And to that point, term limits, as well as getting people prepared. I just saw Tim Walz in an interview, and he said that he's not stepping down for everything, the narrative that the Trump administration is painting, that he was corrupt and the Somalians were, you know, painting a broad stroke that they were participating in fraud. He said any large metropolitan area is going to have fraud. And you certainly cannot throw everybody into one category, but he's stepping down because of term. He doesn't believe anyone should have more than 2 terms. And he's setting up an organization to help prepare people to run for public offices. So.
All right. I want to address the question that you talked about with corruption.
Yes.
I think that we have a problem with corruption in both parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, except I think that they have 2 different problems with corruption. The problem with the Republican Party is that they're okay with corruption for me, but not for thee. The problem with the Democratic Party usually is that they will not tolerate corruption, or they'll throw their thumbs up at corruption from the Republican Party. But when it comes to their party, they're not going to tolerate it at all or do anything that even gives the appearance of immorality, right? So I think that they are now bending a curve, and they realize that with this type of Republican that's in office right now, the type that's fine with stealing an election, gerrymandering things, Trump wakes up one day and says, give me 10 extra seats or something like that, just redistrict, do a racial gerrymander to block all the black people from having any votes or from their votes having any effectiveness, and turn around and get seats. We're finally getting a different type of Democrat now that's willing to say, no, No more of this you go high, we go low. When they go low, we go high stuff. If you go low, we're going to kick you. So you gerrymander, now we're going to gerrymander just as hard and teach you a lesson. Even though it's a race to the bottom and people's votes lose effectiveness, they have to learn that you cannot do that kind of stuff. And until we get them out of office and regain some kind of civility within our electoral process, then this is the route that we have to take.
Wonderful. Micah, do you have?
Sorry, can you go over the question one more time?
It was the corruption.
Okay. I think I would tell, the youth or just people in general to not be bought. I think that once money is involved, especially, if we get stimulus check, we think, oh, this president is the best ever, but you got to really look at their patterns. What exactly are they doing? Yeah, I would just tell my people, don't be bought. And I think that's why the world is corrupt, right? Because people are choosing money over morals and principalities and things like that. So I would say and being that it's a capitalistic society, that's how we've been conditioned to think, is that money is just the answer. And that's why, the world is corrupt now, because we're choosing a dollar over humanity.
I think, unfortunately, during conversations like this, it descends into Republican, Democrat, and what they're doing. I am recognize that I'm in a room full of Democrats, of which I'm not. And so what I would encourage young men to do would be to vote independent, to not register for either party and be independent, because voting is a process by where I think it's important to use leverage. It doesn't require any allegiance to any party, especially when you go the independent route. And so when you get into conversations about who is more corrupt and who is not, you move away from the end goal, which is to hopefully encourage Black men to get involved in the process, not as a belief system, but more so as an understanding of intervention, more so as an understanding that it's their responsibility to use at least one tool in the toolbox to intervene, particularly on the level where you're generally talking about politics that are in your hometown, in your community, and so forth. And so that would be my call to action for young Black men, would be to reject the Democrat and Republican Party and choose to register as independents, and then make your move from there.
I would make a massive disagreement with you on this. We are in the state with the third highest life expectancy in the United States. The top 11 states by life expectancy are deep blue states. Trump lost every single one of them. He won every single one of the bottom 18 states in life expectancy. There is a huge difference between the parties. Huge, enormous. It starts with life expectancy. It goes across the board on human rights. Huge difference. Both parties are not the same. They're not comparable. One party stands in the mainstream of modern civilization.
My argument is not about equivalence. My argument is about action. If we're talking about having Black men to vote, young, middle, old, in between, across the spectrum, we need to give them strategies that help them get active. And it appears to me, at least from the conversations that I have with young Black men, that the Democratic Party is a disillusionment for them. They're not interested in talking about that work from that particular space. Now, you can be an independent registered voter, as I am, and do vote Democratic. I believe that Democrats, for example, bring a higher standard of life, a higher quality of life when they're in office. The research shows that. But the point here is to get them involved and to offer them other avenues other than two choices that are out there. And then have a conversation around those two choices in terms of equivalent is a distraction. It's not something that pulls them into the conversation.
Okay, wait 1 second. I would just like to give a quick retort to this one, because there are a lot of people that feel like Black men should become independents. And I think that at this point that we're at, where things are so close and we really need to change the state of the country, I don't think that you should waste your vote being an independent, because in most states, independents do not have any chance of winning. So what you're actually doing when you vote independent is you're throwing away your vote. Like, there are people like Jill Stein who come around every election cycle, and they, in my opinion, are implants that are just here to split the black vote in two, to say, okay, well, both parties suck, so vote for me. Throw away your votes on me. Jill Stein runs every election cycle, has never won anything, yet keeps making the round, going on Hot 97. Hey, black guys, come out and vote for me. Trump is racist. This one is that and the third. And before you know it, the person that you should have been voting for loses by a little bit because someone like this came along and pulled the wool over your head. Next, in the terms of corruption, I think that we have a problem with the system. The system that we have should not allow someone like Trump to win, right? There is a system in place now that allows, in certain states, you can't vote if you have a felony, right? You cannot vote for the president if you have a felony. Those same states, when they saw this rich white guy running with 34 felonies and how many abuse cases and all that under his belt, they say, well, you can run for president if you have felonies. We don't mind that. So you're electing someone who's worse than, like, if you have one felony, you can't vote for this guy, but he can have 34 and assume the seat of president in that state. Some of these states need to change their laws and encode them so that no one can override anything like that. Someone like this shouldn't be able to win an election. Next, the problem with corruption is the very things that make this guy unqualified for president are the things that make some of our people want to vote for him, and people in general want to vote for him, right? Some people look at him, well, you know, I like his swagger. I think everybody's racist, but this guy says what's on his mind, and I like that. Well, that's exactly what makes him not a good president. If he's coming out and being openly racist, that's the guy you should not vote for, because he's not gonna make a good president. And he's showing it. When he gets in office, oh, forget you guys. We don't want any DEI. You guys didn't earn it. Yet you've hired the most unqualified set of people that have ever been in the White House. None of them have any qualifications. Our White House right now is full of podcasters from Fox News who are actively messing up the economy, who are actively messing up the education system, who have single-handedly brought back measles, a disease that we eradicated years ago when intelligent people were running the country. There are consequences to picking morally reprehensible people like him, and I think that we need to fix the system that even enables them to come into power in the first place. That's my 2 cents.
I agree on fixing the system, but black folks ain't voting for Jill Stein. And so just to be clear, again, this is about optionality. Yes, if we want to have a conversation about Democrats versus Republicans, then let's change the damn prompt on the screen. This conversation was about access to voting, whether it's not some responsibility. How they do it, yes, that could be a Part B conversation for sure. But to encourage folks, black men in particular, who may be thinking about whether or not they have a space in the politics, they should be able to consider all of the toolkit and not just one part of the toolkit for whatever reasons we discuss here, which, by the way, I of course agree that the current administration is criminal. Of course I agree with that. The point, though, here is to answer the prompt, which is, should black men vote? And then the follow-up question is, how can we get there? I'm just offering them one strategy, because certainly the soapbox, Democrat, 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 is clearly not working.
And I know you want to say something?
Yes.
Okay, John, you go ahead.
The drawback of going out of the Democratic Party is that you then can't participate in primaries, which are very, very important. Too many of us do not vote in primaries. So that's one thing. The third parties, I wanted to emphasize, some black people did vote for Cornel West. They did vote for other third parties, right? The Republican Party funds those third parties tremendously. They spent a lot of money on Cornel West. They spent a lot of money on Jill Stein. They gave money to Ralph Nader. You know, they have gone back many, many years funding third parties in the key swing states. And that is where they really pump up the third parties. Because they know they're horribly unpopular. They know their policies are garbage, right? So the idea that we shouldn't talk will increase black engagement by not talking about the party that's ending democracy, the party that's rolling back the Voting Rights Act, is one party doing it. And you must talk about Republican and Democrat if democracy is to have any chance of surviving. We are on the brink of racist dictatorship. People understand this. We're in a very dire situation. Part of me hopes Trump drafts all the people that voted for him and sends them to Iran, sends them to Greenland, sends them to all these places that he's actually starting war with. This is not a drill. This is not a joke.
It was Bill Clinton who started the era of mass incarceration. Bill Clinton was a Democrat.
That is a lie. That is a falsehood.
Richard
Nixon started that with his war on drugs and law and order.
Bill Clinton continued the legacy of that. And by the way, let's be clear, he had support of Black Democrats. What I'm saying is, and again, I'm not here to disparage Black Democrats. I'm letting you know that there is a through line between not having options and not being involved, and the way in which we can get more people involved is to give them those options.
All right.
Let's talk about those options. So right now, whether somebody declares himself to be an independent, or declares himself to be a Democrat, or declares himself to be a Republican, or decides I'm opting out of the system altogether, what is it that we would encourage people to look for, especially men who have decided they're not going to vote, in order to have trust in the system and to see that there is something that can build towards a better future for Black America?
Beef up math and science education. We are at a deficit of logic. Basic logic in our community, is wanting, and this is killing us. So people can come and lie to us, and we don't have enough logic to separate truth from falsehood. This is a major problem, and our enemies are using that weakness against us. And I'm saying this as a physicist. My dad was a math professor, RIP. I want to see much more math, science, and logic in our community.
Critical thinking.
Yes.
Right.
I agree with the critical thinking aspect of what you just said. We are, once again, in a situation where every election is becoming Trump is either winning by a paper-thin margin or we're winning by a paper-thin margin. We are not in position at this point to entertain throwing away votes on a specific type of party that is not going to win at the moment, right? That's like those people in 2016 who 15,000 people in Florida voted for Harambe, right? They wrote in Harambe because they didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton or Trump. This was a movement, right? And in an election where Hillary Clinton's loss was such a small margin, and to know that people threw away their vote like that, I look at some of the independents that are running, and voting for them is like the equivalent of voting for Harambe, because in their state, you know that they're not going to win. And you know that we need your votes in order to fix this system. We have never had a president that is just going out of his way to roll back any and everything that helps Black people. First few days in office, he rolled back legislation that has been on the books for 60 years that does nothing but protect people's rights, right? Right now, he is fighting and hell-bent on rolling back Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. You know what happens when they do that? There is nothing to stop them from putting a jar of marbles in front of you and saying, oh, you have the right to vote, but we need to make sure that you can count these marbles right here. Tell us how much. Oh, 800? I'm sorry, you have the wrong number. Try better luck next time, right? You guys are laughing, but that's what these rules were put there to protect against, right? Packing, cracking, we're seeing all of that right now. People are taking Black voters from one section of the populace so that has a strong Black district and moving them to another one, right? That's cracking. We are also seeing packing. There's a whole lot of Black people throughout the state. Let's put them all in one district. So even if they all vote one way, they're in this district and they're not going to win the state, right? In order to prevent against that, we need to vote together. We need to pool our resources together, and we don't need to throw away votes on people that can't win. Can the independent party rise to power one day, change the dynamics of the electoral system, and create a third option for us? I have faith that could happen. Do I want to bet on that right now in this era that we're in right now when we're losing all our rights? No.
I'm clearly at the wrong panel discussion, but I get it. And I want to make sure that I'm on record saying I understand it. I understand all of the conversation around voting as a united front, full-throated, get it. But the question is not how black men should vote. The question is, should they vote? And so I just want to make sure that I'm centering that conversation on that question, but also if I'm asked for strategies to get them in there, I think there's got to be something else other than one option and the only option for them because of the political climate, which, by the way, is a drastic climate to be in for sure. And I would love to come back and have a conversation on how black men should vote for certainly, but whether or not they should vote and how they can get involved and how they can trust the system is incredibly important. I would also argue that maintaining a healthy distrust for the system is also an access to vote. And so making sure that we talk to folks about the good, the bad, and the ugly so that they can make an informed decision, particularly black men, is crucial.
I want to agree with everything he said and add the fact that we can also run for office. And I strongly encourage people to inform themselves and run for different offices. Run for the smallest little local office, community board, what have you. Participate in any way you feel comfortable participating.
It's a very good point. Because if we can encourage more voices to come to the front, then we're not just relying on the same people who have been coming up through the political system and following the same.
I would like to run for office, but I said too much about white people on social media. And so I just can't go through that. But, there we are.
Akari, maybe the black community needs someone that we can all get behind. So maybe you should run. Okay. Just from the standpoint of knowing how statistically voting is declining, do you have any thoughts on why that might be happening? The number of young people who are going to the polls. Micah, maybe you can speak to that.
I think it's declining, like I said before, due to broken promises. It's like, especially as a kid, it's like if I say I'm going to take you to Universal Studios and I never show up, you're going to lose trust in me. So how many broken promises do we have to face? And, for these politicians to get what they want and for us to still face poverty, for our youth to still just be, not having infrastructure in our community, which is leading to a lot of violence more than ever, So I think you get tired of being tired. So again, there is a broken trust in the system due to people not, fulfilling their promises.
Okay, Jones?
There's not a general decline in participation. The decline in participation is in specific groups. Black people, young people, Latinos, just people of certain groups of people of color. It's specifically in the most democratic leaning groups. We are being targeted for heavy misinformation. We're being targeted with a lot of lies. Mass incarceration is one of the biggest topics where we're being bombarded with lies. I remember Nixon very well. I remember his creation of the DEA. I remember his creation of the war on drugs. I remember his creation of this law and order. And he worked with, sad to say, a lot of Democrats. Joe Biden, he was in the Senate. He was working with Nixon to imprison a lot of people in our community for marijuana. I wasn't sorry to see Biden's son get convicted on the same laws that they used to put so many millions of us away, right? There was a wave after civil rights of mass incarceration. It started in the late 60s when Nixon won in 68, so 69, and it accelerated a lot. People feel like, a lot of people think, and there's a lot of misinformation that it started under Clinton with that crime bill. That's not true. In percentage terms, the percentage growth of imprisonment was much faster through the 70s and 80s than it was in the 90s. It actually decelerated in the 90s. It actually was slowing down because the percentage of people in prison was already so high, they couldn't build the prisons fast enough to jail as many people as they wanted to.
And then we have the private prisons.
Yes.
Okay, I think that the answer to that question is multifaceted. If you want to go to the Trump voters that are not voting, I think that most realize now that he pulled the wool over their eyes, and so they are not turning out as they were in elections. And blue candidates are winning by margins that we haven't seen before because of that, because of how horrible he's been in office, right? I think that for Black and brown people and Spanish people, I think that the primary reason that a lot of them don't vote is because of different degrees of ignorance towards the importance of the voting process, ignorance to the struggles that people have gone through to obtain the right to vote and things like that, and the fact that they haven't felt any harm from choosing to abstain from the process yet. Some of them are starting to feel direct correlations between their decision not to vote and their lives being affected, right? Because some of them didn't vote now, and their groceries are getting up higher. So they can see that, right? And that's because of the person that they chose to not vote against. Some of them are looking at the gas tank now, and they're like, wow, me not voting caused my gas to go up. This is something important. Maybe I should do that. Some of them who have student loans now have to repay them under the Biden program. Everybody, oh, Biden this, Biden, they were focused on the Gaza. Well, Biden didn't object enough to Gaza. I don't like him, even though he did more for Black people than most other presidents out there, right? Because he had the white privilege to be able to do that without anybody looking at him and saying, oh, you're doing too much or something like that. So he did what he did, even though he put a Black woman on the Supreme Court, the first Black woman to ever be there. We still, oh, well, he's getting old. You know, he stumbled a little bit, right? But now that things are getting bad, they can relate to it more. So I think, again, ignorance. And then we have other certain movements that also are based on an ignorance of the law. So like at the National Action Network conference, after I came up to speak, there was another gentleman who said, well, you know what? We shouldn't vote for anybody unless they give us a check. No check, no vote. And some people in the crowd were just cheering like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that, again, is a policy that's based on ignorance. If you know anything about the law, you would know it's illegal to pay people to vote for you. So anyone who gives you a check to vote is going to jail. There is no check, no vote is a non-starter, right? And then the people who are already in office don't like us and are rolling back our rights. They're not going to give us a check. So we have to educate our young people. When people come out and take a mic and say something like that, we have to correct them and make sure that they understand the way that the system works, and we need to keep them engaged. We need to do a better job of informing younger people.
In election to 2024, Elon Musk paid out $1 million a week in every swing state. This guy should be in prison for that. He did it, and he has gotten away with it. There's been no prosecution, not one. In which civilized country can you do that? He went out across every swing state handing out $1 million in cash every week.
We're talking about Elon Musk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but he's not the person running.
Running for office.
Yeah, that's the misnomer. He held his own little lottery saying, all right, well, if you vote, I'll hold the lottery and the winner gets $2 million, which is a way around the law. But that's all that this Trump administration does, escape the law, try to do something deplorable, reprehensible, and illegal through third parties or something like that. But that's a problem with the system, but I digress.
Kari, did you have something you wanted to say?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Okay. Well, just as a follow-up, Micah, did you have anything? Did you want to add to this?
I was the first one to
Okay. Gotcha. Sorry about that. Okay. So just in terms of this overall behavior, we are seeing people, stepping away for reasons we can certainly understand with regard to the being disengaged, not finding that not understanding our history. And we have these, yet the overall question, should they vote? We've answered that. What is it that we can do to encourage more voting in our community? What is it that we can do with these young people? How do we show them that this is actually for their benefit?
Number one, fight the misinformation. We need to be much more active in the venues where the misinformation is being peddled. And that starts with the internet and social media. You know, the visual media, TikTok, Instagram, all of these platforms, we need to be much more active there, but it's very tough because they're owned by horrible racists. And the racist billionaires are now buying up TV. You know, they're not satisfied with their total domination of social media. They're coming in now and buying up television as well. And that reminds me of a very important point. Elon Musk bought Twitter for $40 billion. That was a campaign contribution. He's turned that thing into 24/7 white supremacist garbage. That was the biggest, not only the biggest political campaign contribution ever, it was more money than has been spent in all campaigns combined in US history. So people say, Elon Musk spent hundreds of billions. No, he spent hundreds of millions. He spent 40 billion just on Twitter. And that was completely devoted to Trump and Republicans. So you're asking how we can get youth engaged? We have to fight at that level. That's the level we have to fight at. It's very, very difficult. Immediately after civil rights, there were far fewer billionaires, and they had a much smaller percentage of national wealth than they do now. Billionaires got richer because racists have consistently, incessantly cut taxes since civil rights. And they're doing that to concentrate that money away from us, to concentrate that wealth and opportunity away from us, to segregate the economy, and to perpetuate segregation financially. And now it's gotten to a point where it's eating up democracy entirely. It's ending democracy entirely. The rise of the billionaires is very, very dangerous.
It sounds like there might be an opportunity for Black billionaires to do something right. Kari, did you want to?
I say this as an educator, but also recognize the flaws of what happens in education. But I do think that young people at a very early age should engage in some project-based learning around what it looks like to be participating in civics. I think they should be able to start by third grade in being a part of the decision-making of their school. So principals and assistant principals and school leaders should invite young folks into the school design. They should also learn what it's like to be decision makers, because I think this speaks to the point around critical thinking, and that should start early. And so some sort of way in which we can engage young people at the earliest ages while their brain is forming to participate and show what the harm looks like when you don't participate, I think might be critically important. And I do say that recognizing that we are in school systems where white supremacy is the rule for the day. And so what that looks like for Black and brown children is critically important. But I do think starting young, starting early, talking about the political system, talking about the economy, talking about the intersectionality of all of those things is critically important to growing folks who participate in a larger adult-driven political system when they reach that age, when they reach the adult age.
This is excellent. This is really excellent.
agree.
Anti-misinformation kind of inoculation, if you will, like a vaccine against misinformation.
All right. I think that to a large degree, we have a very good formula of engaging young people. I think that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I think that we need to focus on our young people. We need to educate them on the value of sticking together and the value of what happens when we vote as a block, right? We are a unique group. Black people are the ones who have paved the way and created civil rights and created voting rights for themselves out of no way, right? They are people who protested and put their bodies on the line and recognized that this is the way that we are going to gain our civil rights. After that, they used their power and voted as a bloc. Remember, it was young people who were at the head of those movements, right? They didn't get where they were by putting grown people in the front lines and saying whatever. No, this is school children holding hands saying we shall overcome. And at the end of the day, their love overcame the world's hatred, or the United States hatred at the time. And they were able to make a way out of no way. I think that if young people get back to that, instead of being divided on things that don't really matter, if they come together, join networks like the National Action Network, join networks like the NAACP, let's pool our resources together, we can accomplish something. I think that most young people get disencouraged when they decide, okay, well, I'm gonna go out and vote this time, and then their person loses. So like if they go out and vote for Kamala, well, this is the one time I went out here and I exercised my vote and it didn't go the way I want, so I'm done with this process, it's all corrupt, whatever. But you would recognize that if you got other young people together like you and said, you know what, they used to do this back in the 60s and it was effective, right? They came together as a block. They voted together. We brought 10 and 12 people to the polls. We walked to the polls because we couldn't get on the buses, right? We had to bring paper bags. We had to use the bathroom on the sideway. Right now, you have a clear shot to your voting booth. You can encourage other people to go there with you. You have phones. You have a whole bunch of things that didn't exist when they did so much more with so much less. So I think, again, bringing the young people together, teaching them about the value of staying together, especially young Black men and women. We are the ones that are being targeted, and we are the ones that need to pool our resources. That's my answer.
Great point, Micah.
I think education, and I want to piggyback off what he said about, you know, having kids participate in a voting activity, because once you participate in something, you get to see the impact that it has and the value that it brings. So I think you have to be educated in order to understand, you know, the value that you're bringing as an individual. And then once you understand the value that you're bringing as an individual, you can understand it more on a larger scale. So that's my take on it.
Great point. And Kari, I'm going to direct this one to you first. So historically, you know, Black voters have voted Democrat. And certainly out of the last election, they kept pushing the Republican Party as the party of Lincoln, as if that should sway voters to come over to the Republican side. But what do you think it would take for voters to start voting strategically as opposed to down party lines?
I do think, and I'm going to go back to the conversations around you learn by doing, which is what Micah is talking about. I do think it starts there. But also, there's obviously a level of political sophistication that you need to have that many of our people don't have. They don't have the same level of understanding of law or constitutionality as our lawyer on the panel. They may not be able to think critically as our scientists on the panel. And so strategic thinking, strategic voting requires strategic thinking, but it also requires information. And so if we can get out the information, if we can teach critically thinking skills at every age, if we can battle misinformation, if we lead by example. I don't think it's one particular thing that gets you there. I think it's a battle that happens at every area of people activity. And to me, that is the way you get folks to be strategic. There's a lot of information for voters to unpack. We have to figure out the best way to make sure that they have that information without feeding them by a fire hose. And I think a lot of the work that sometimes happens is that there's so much information coming at you that you really don't get a chance to digest it. And then finally, I do think there's something to be said about courses that teach you to deconstruct propaganda. What does it look like when propaganda is coming at you? What is the politics of propaganda? And then how can you get at what you need to get at in order to pull back the layers? Because from my experience, I see that folks are not good at navigating propaganda, and it becomes, in many cases, something that's confirmed by whatever bias they already hold. And so when they see that piece of propaganda, they latch onto it. So propaganda literacy, to me, is incredibly important as well.
And that would pretty much lie to some of the points that you've made, Jones, about the misinformation on the internet. Maybe an anti-propaganda campaign on TikTok and social media aimed at youth would be a strategy to get them.
China has done something really interesting to combat misinformation. And what China has done is you can't comment on a technical subject if you're not qualified in that technical subject. They don't necessarily put a limitation on what you say about engineering, but if you come up and you you put up social media videos about engineering, you better be a qualified engineer. If you put out bad information that causes people to do something harmful to themselves, the police will come look for you and ask you, where are your engineering credentials? Where are your medical credentials? What are your scientific credentials that you put out this information that then caused a lot of harm? And there's nothing like that here at all. You know, the universities aren't doing it. The medical licensing boards, they just let people run wild with misinformation.
Well, it comes from the administration even.
Yes.
Drink bleach
From the
and
very
don't
top.
take Tylenol, right? I think we're going to take a break here. We have an artist who is going to come and for some entertainment. We have Dos Santana. And I want to say thank you so much to Kassan Henry of Harlem Studios for putting this great production together. So we look forward to coming back to you in just a few minutes, and we are going to have a little entertainment here from Das. Thank you, Das.
Thank you, thank you, Paula. And it's Dos Sinatra. Dos Sinatra. I'm sorry, guys. That's okay. It's okay. I love the energy. That was a great, great catalog. How y'all feeling out there? Y'all good? Y'all good? Okay. All right then. Just a little background story. I was born and raised in Harlem. 31 years old. Mom raised me. Hello. Good. Mom raised me. 5 kids, single mother. I used to go to Harlem Church Zone, you know what I'm saying, for after school, life science. I graduated. I got a bachelor's in social work. Yeah, just a young black man with a college degree. So, trying to change the world. So, yeah. This song is called Slide Antics. I'm performing for y'all tonight. Enjoy it, like the vibe. Can't promise that there's no curses, but I'll give you that promise. Okay? So yeah. Just keeping it real with y'all, that's all. Okay, cool. Let's hear that song, guys. Man, it's raining today. Can't believe it's raining, right? It's suck out there. It's bad weather. Especially on the weekend, like, come on. You know, black people don't want to travel in the rain, so you know that, right? So, yeah. Alrighty then. How's everybody feeling? Good? Yeah? Okay, we here, right? That's us. All praise to glory, we here. So we're just gonna keep it up with it, right? Oh man. Just want to say, oh, okay, good. Just want to say I'm definitely intriguing the Cali y'all was speaking. So shout out to y'all in the back that was speaking up to the stage. Just want to give y'all a shout out. That's all. No, anytime. Thank you. Oh man, you making me nervous already, man. Thank you. All right, guys. I hope y'all like the vibe. It's a cool vibe. The song's called Slide. Ready? Yeah. Look. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me like need me, need you. Good time, seafood. That's how you feel. Me too. Daddy on. Me too. Me too. Eat loud. Eat you loud. I see you. That's how you feel. Me too. That's how you. Me too. Radio. That's you. There you go. Hear you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's kind of okay. We gotta keep it going, right? Let's go. We working, we young, we black, we working, we go, let's slide, let's go. Slide, let's go. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me up and I'll slide. Good feelings, but not feelings. Ain't got no feelings. We gotta keep going. This is crazy. I don't know, we wavy. All the black people up in this building, having fun, good time. Now we gonna drink some good wine. I don't know, I'm saying, but we gonna have a good time. Yes, and shout out to people in the chest. All the money we invest, we gonna have some. Let's go. If we keep going. Okay. Okay. We gotta push through this. We're gonna push through it. We're gonna push through it like this. 1, 2, 3, now. Slide, slide, slide. Yeah. Slide, slide, slide. Yeah. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me up and I'll slide. Call me up and I'll. I'm so sorry. So the audience. So sorry. That song is called Slide Antics. You catch it on Apple or Spotify. So sorry to give y'all my most apology for that, but it will happen again. And my next song is coming up soon after, so sorry. Thank you. I'm here for the moment. So yes, and it's Dose Sinatra. I'm everywhere. YouTube got videos out. Yes, I'm an artist. So yes. Who's coming to get the mic? Thank you, Miss Paula. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ghost, that was really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to go into round 2, and I want to say thank you so much, Dose. Your performance is really wonderful. We look forward to seeing more of you on Spotify and the community. I thank Henry and Harlem Studios for pulling this together. And I encourage everyone to subscribe to Soul Food Forum on YouTube so that you can catch more of these great talks. Susan has a whole calendar of events that are coming up, so don't miss it. All right, I'm going to invite my panelists to come back. Thank you. So we're going to go into round 2, have a few more questions, and then some questions from the audience. And those of you who are watching on YouTube Live, if you'd like to put any questions in the chat, we'll answer those for you as well. Okay? I thank you again to our audience for being here, coming out on this rainy, beautiful day in Harlem, and we're going to take your questions as well. Okay, Dylan, my next question to you is that now if we're encouraging young people to vote, what do you say, and it doesn't have to be each of you have the same answer necessarily, what would you identify as being 2 or 3 things that you think Black voters should get behind?
You talking about issues?
And issues, yes. And Mike, would you like to start?
Why, why do we vote? What is, and who is aligned with us, right? At this point, for politicians, all we want is results. It comes to a point where there's just enough talking, we want actual results. So it's just a matter of, what's going on in our community, what is the why, why are we voting, what is the impact that's going to have on our world, and most importantly in our community, because we still live in these places. A lot of these places are becoming gentrified, so they are pushing out seniors, right? Seniors hasn't worked. Some seniors hasn't worked since like the 1980s or whatever, So we want to just understand the why. So once we understand the why, I think we will maneuver way better. But we need to be educated for sure, starting with the historical times and how we got to where we are now.
I think one of the pressing issues that Black voters need to coalesce around is artificial intelligence and how it's used, and most importantly, how artificial intelligence will be used to create generations of those who have and have not. And my fear is that artificial intelligence will be another way to separate Black and brown children from white affluent kids, because I damn sure know they're going to use artificial intelligence in a way that enriches their society, that enriches their community, and figure out a way to leave black and brown children behind. So if I was really out there talking about the issues, one issue I would focus on is that we're organized around AI, because if we don't, it'll be to our peril.
I think that we just need to keep it simple. We need a rudimentary understanding of the system, how it works, and the importance of voting in midterm elections, the importance of taking back the House and the Senate from these Republicans. Now, I think that a lot of youth get frustrated when they see that their party is in power and their party is not doing as much as Trump did to take things away from them. Like Trump says, I'm going to take away DEI, I'm going to do this, and he just goes out and does whatever he wants. So they're looking at the system like, well, why didn't this other person do that when they were in office? And they don't understand that Trump has the House, Trump has the Senate, and he has these other people that these radical right-wing Supreme Court justices that he put on the Supreme Court to take away your rights. So he has a trifecta. We haven't had a president that's been that effective, and it's literally because some of us abstained from the process. So right now, to claw this back, we need to take back the House. We need to take back the Senate. That removes his ability to just go out and do whatever he wants. There is a Congress that he's supposed to go through Congress to do most of the things that he has been doing. But the reality is that we have a bunch of, for lack of a better word, ring kissers in Congress right now that just bow down and kiss his ring whenever he says to do something. They're not supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to be opposing things that the people don't want, but they are ignoring the people who elected them into their positions to do Trump's bidding. So once we take back those two branches, the House and the Senate, then we will be able to put checks on this Trump administration so that he stops doing things that harms the overall population. So just rudimentary understanding of the system.
My priority issues for the black community start with voting rights. Number one, basically just look at everything the Supreme Court has been doing since 1973 or so, when Republicans got the majority. And we need to fight to reverse all of that. Massive amounts of corruption, bribery, Watergate, and Citizens United, the rollback of the Voting Rights Act. They've been doing this for a long time without us noticing. Most of us don't notice the Supreme Court. Most of us don't think or talk about the Supreme Court. To change the Supreme Court, you need long-term control of Congress. You need long-term control of the Senate, because that's where Supreme Court justices get confirmed. You know, I remember when Clarence Thomas was confirmed, a significant percentage of black people supported him because they just saw a black face and just figured, well, you know, he's replacing Thurgood Marshall. He's the opposite of Thurgood Marshall. He's the complete opposite. Clarence Thomas is a crook. He's a grifter. He is corrupt. He's the one receiving the most gifts of any Supreme Court justice. So I feel like we need more of a focus on voting rights and on democracy itself. It may be too late. We may well be in irreversible racist dictatorship for the rest of our lives. We may have already lost this battle. Things are very, very dire. You know, things are very, very serious.
Kari, did you have a comment?
I said, we've been in one.
Yeah.
I don't like to be too negative. I always think that where there's a will, there's a way. We've been in worse situations before, right? We didn't have voting rights or civil rights or anything like that before, and people made a way out of no way. We have the tools. We just need to keep our heads where they need to be, and we need to focus on getting back what it is that we have and making it better, fixing the system so that people like this can't come and do what Donald Trump has done. And I'm a firm believer in that where there's a will, there's a way. So it ain't too late. As long as I have breath in my lungs and people like me have breath in their lungs, it's not too late. We're going to come back from this.
So to sum it up, if we were to talk to young black men today about why they should vote, we'd say we need to make sure that you're aware of AI and that AI is coming for your jobs.
Look, you asked for an issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you asked us to explain. Like, there's many issues, and I think we've hit that on the panel. AI is not the only thing.
Right.
And how I would talk to black men about voting would be a lot different than how some of the panelists here are seeing it.
Okay.
I do agree in we are in a seriously perilous historical state, and that I get. I also think the journey is important, but I also believe that we should talk to Black men about the vote being an intervention and a tool in the toolkit that costs you nothing, very little energy, and you can match that with the other things that you do in other spaces, like community organizing, like organizing around economic inequality, like involving yourself in education. It is, and we need to explain to them, it's not the only way to be active.
Right.
We recognize that it's an imperfect system, but if you match that with the work that you do in your community, then you have more tools to reach whatever goal that you want to reach, or at least aspire to, right? You're part of the conversation.
Exactly. And Kari, that's a great point. I'm going to open up to the panel. What would be some of the things that you would say to a Black youth who might, or a Black man who might be on the fence about voting?
I would say, look at who is trying to take away your right to vote. Look at who is rolling back the Voting Rights Act.
Micah, what would you say to somebody in your community?
Wow, that's interesting. Great question, because sometimes I'm on the fence. But I would say which politician more so aligns with, the goals that you have for your community in the world. Because again, like I keep saying, that we just want results. So you have to look at the pattern. Look at our current president. Look at the pattern of him. He has gone bankrupt. He has multiple women saying that that he did certain things to them. So does that align with who you are, and does that align with the community, your dream community? So I think you just need to really analyze and assess who aligns with your goals for your community and yourself, and also looking at their pattern. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Marcus.
I would ask them, how has not voting worked out for you so far? From 2016 to now, the 2 times that we got this guy in office. Each time he has been here, he has literally had a demonstratively negative effect on my life specifically, and on all of our lives, all right? If we look at the first time he was in office, people gave him grace because of the COVID-19 pandemic, not understanding that it's his actions that led to COVID-19 becoming a pandemic in the first place. Now, other presidents, every president that has come along has had a pandemic fund. They have had to deal with things that have the potential to be a global pandemic. They are advised by the CDC to use US resources to go to the place where the pandemic could potentially be stemming and nip it in the bud, right? If Obama was like Donald Trump, Obama was facing Ebola. That was scheduled to become a global pandemic. If Obama did not listen to the CDC, go over there and take care of the problem, use American resources, right? Like any good president that came before him, he listened to the CDC and did what they said to do. Bush faced something that was just as bad as COVID-19, the first form of COVID-19, right? SARS. That's how we got the vaccine, because they had been working on one for SARS. That would have been just as bad as COVID if George Bush did not listen to his advisors and go over there and take care of the problem. Now, what happens when you elect someone who is incompetent, who is reprehensible, who is racist, who is just not fit for the job? He does what any racist bigot does. He says, no, wait, that's going on where? In China, it's going to be a pandemic if I don't do anything? No, America first. And I want more money in my pocket. Let's get rid of the pandemic fund, right? That's the first time a president did that. Then he hears, okay, in Wuhan is getting really bad. This unknown virus is causing X, Y, Z. We should do something. Okay, no. Let's close our borders and make sure they don't come here. That is the worst response that you could have had. And it's the reason why all of us were in our houses for all that time, quarantining, right? That has never happened because we have never had somebody that bad and that incompetent. And we got him because we chose not to vote. Now here we are where he's putting tariffs on everybody. I didn't have to pay anything for my student loans. It was not accruing any debt coming out of law school for a while. So I was like, okay, good. I got a good cushion because of Joe Biden. He rolled that back. Once again, I am directly affected where my loans are accruing interest now because this moron got elected because people stayed on their couches and didn't vote. And I would turn over to that grown man or teenager who's thinking about not voting and ask him, how has this president helped you, if he has at all? And then I'd ask him, how has he harmed you, right? And did you regret not voting this time? If the answer is yes, then that's the best reason that I can give you to tell you why it is important to stay engaged in the voting process every time you have an opportunity to do so.
And I think every time you have an opportunity to do so is a key point, because it's not just the presidential election that people are not showing up for. More so, the things that are really affecting us close to home, it's the city offices, the state offices, and people are not showing up for those elections either. And probably even at a smaller amount, they're showing up than they are for the presidential election. What is the fear or harm that they should expect if they don't vote? Fear is a great motivator. So,
Fear is just look back at our history. I was born before the Voting Rights Act, so I know exactly what to fear. I talked to my parents, I talked to my dad about what it was like to be in America in the 50s and 60s. So, I know what to fear, but I don't want to go back to what they went through. I would also add, in addition to, if you look at the candidates and you say, this is terrible, run for office. You look at the choices and you say, I don't like these choices. Become the choice. Become the additional choice. And it doesn't have to be president. There's a lot going on besides the presidency. We've talked about the legislatures. We've talked about the state and local. We've talked about the judiciary. There's a whole bunch of opportunities where you can participate.
good point.
June, in a couple of months, you go to primaries for Congress, governor, state assembly, state senate.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Thank you, brother.
Exactly.
Very important.
Anyone else want to elaborate on getting the people out to the local elections and how important that is?
And that's where it's important to be registered in some party. You can participate in the primaries, and the primaries matter a lot. Republican racist billionaires spend a lot of money in Democratic primaries. They are very, very active in Democratic Party primaries. The opposite is not true at all. Democrats don't play in Republican primaries, but Republicans are very, very active in Democratic primaries. And they're always trying to push the Democratic Party to the racist right. They're doing this a lot. They tried to get rid of Mamdani. They got rid of Jamal Bowman just for telling the truth. They jumped in with $80 million, the most that has ever been spent in a House race, a House primary, was spent to kick Jamal Bowman out.
I think you have to be careful with that, because when you're talking about that, and you have the woman in Missouri.
Yes, Cori Bush.
Cori. You have to understand, that didn't happen to white Democrats. So it only happened to the black Democrats. So I think we have to be careful. So my assessment of what happened.
Notice what I said. Notice what I said. I said the racist Republican billionaires. They
Yeah, but
want
I'm
to
saying-
they want to decrease
but
black
Those
representation.
billionaires also had other races that they lost to white Democrats recently. So it's not just a matter of the big butts. It's not just a matter
But they
of
didn't
that.
spend that kind of money. They didn't spend $80
Oh, they
million
spent billions.
against
They
any white
spent
candidate.
billions of dollars in those races.
But they didn't spend $80 million. The money against Jamal Bowman in particular was a record. It's the most of all time. But I agree with you. His being black, huge factor to why they were so motivated.
People who supported him originally were swayed by that money.
Yes.
So his part of his base actually was swayed by that money. So I think you have to be careful to not understand how racism operates, because the people who supported him originally, some of them were swayed.
Yes.
That doesn't happen for white Democrats.
Yes.
And we have to be very careful about saying these things and knowing that racism operates differently for a black candidate and a white candidate.
But the Republican billionaires who are playing in the Democratic primaries, they're very consciously trying to lower black representation.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
that. But they also, they try to advise him, it doesn't work the same way. That's my point.
Okay.
Right. I think that, all right, so my answer to why they should also vote outside of the general elections and stuff like that is because racism has always been here. Racism is not going anywhere. For every battle that we won, the racists never stopped fighting. They are there trying to make their Project 2025. This whole thing was in the works for years. From the time they lost, this was their goal. How are we going to take this back? We don't care if it takes 100 years, 200 years. The next person after us will carry on the fight. When we die, we will preserve racism, right? They realize to a large degree that their unpopular policies will not bode well in the general election. So sometimes they take the L. They understand we are going to lose this. And where they figure enough people will not be engaged is in those other elections that you're not paying attention to, midterms and things of that. That is where they sneak in certain rules that they're like, okay, this will be beneficial to us. We want to pass a law that'll help us gerrymander or help us do this. Let's sneak it in the midterms when we know black people and Spanish people are not going to come to vote, so we have a better chance to win. That's how racism operates, right? They know that their policies are unpopular, so they don't hold things on the House floor during the daytime. They convene at 3 in the morning when everybody's not paying attention and sleeping and nobody's there. All right, let's have our vote now that nobody's looking, because this is deplorable. So if you understand that that is what they're doing, you don't need to give them any kind of leeway to vote on something that you had a chance to stop, but that you didn't because you weren't engaged. We need to be engaged every time. We need to treat every election like we treat the general election. The pushback never stops. When we gain something, after we gain something, it is our job to then turn around and do everything that we can to protect and preserve what we've gained. Or else we end up in situations that we're in right now, where some racist person is intentionally rolling back 60 years worth of things that we fought for that took 60 years for us to get. All right, we can preserve them by making sure we vote every time.
Truly. Carrie, did you? Okay. Micah? Okay. It certainly, and those are very good points, because on the state and local level, the things that they're implementing from the presidential level, if we sometimes have a state choice, you have to make sure that you have the right people in the state offices that are supporting the things that we'd want. And I think we also need to look at who are putting in office, making sure that, as we said earlier, that the graft, we have people who have the ethics not to take it. And I always say that there's a problem when we send somebody into office for a $175,000 job and they come out as millionaires. So you have to think about who are we putting in office. We're going to take some questions now from the audience. And great, my panelists will stay here, and I'm going to play Oprah Winfrey and run around the room. Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to say fantastic job to the panel. So I'm an educator. On my 8-day cycle, I have about 500 students. A huge percentage of my high school students are young men. So I guess as a STEM teacher, I teach comp science, and also knowing that we're at a change or a shift in sharing the sentiments of, like me being a millennial, of my parents and my grandparents, that has changed. They're totally distracted. So how do you plant the seed of civic engagement for that generation that's totally distracted?
Micah?
I think you plant that seed by creating a lesson that will bring instant gratification, because that's the world that we live in, right? Everything is so accessible, everything is so fast, and people love entertainment. So I think that it would be great to plant that seed in an entertaining way that could actually stick with them. And then something that you said that stuck with me is that if you don't like the choice, to become the choice. The thing is that we don't have the guidance on how to become a choice. Like, there's people who start petitions just to sign something and have a street name change, and we can't even do that. So things like that is discouraging for us to go to the next level. But I think, just to go back to your question, creating something that could be entertaining but also informative, that would be a great way for it to stick with the youth, because everything is just moving so fast.
I have a resource for you, Micah. There's a website called runforsomething.com, and it's really mostly young people, and it's just to get people to run for any little office they want to. And it's just all the resources and the info that you need to run for office.
Thank you.
To answer your question, I think that our politicians need to engage social media experts and different kind of people that will help them to meet the youth where they are right now, right? Like a lot of politicians are set in their ways. They know that knocking on doors is how they've been elected in the past, and they're really good about getting out and meeting people in the public, but they don't have a good social media game, or they're not into podcasting and things like that, and they're not reaching the new youth where they get their information from. So they need to pay attention to the trends. If most of these people are watching these podcast shows now, Native Land, whatever black podcasts you guys are looking at, then they need to reach out and sit down with some of those podcasters, like whether it's Breakfast Club or whoever. They need to have a presence in social forums where politicians wouldn't traditionally go to, like Instagram, TikTok, whatever. However you need to get the information to the youth, evolve and make an effort to reach them and meet them where they are. That's my answer to your question.
Like you, I'm an educator. I believe that the strongest way to educate children or to have them participate in their education is through the Socratic method. And if we were able to expand that philosophy, that understanding in our schools, particularly at the high school level, plus eliminate distractions, be able to control what we can control internally, we certainly can't control the external factors that are there. But if in your classroom you are engaging children in an incredibly deep lesson or structures of lessons where they had a Socratic opportunity to engage the material, you can then control the distractions in your classroom. You can turn kids on in a much different way. I know that that sounds rather old school to many people, but I've seen it work in ways that seem to be miraculous. When kids come into their classrooms, they put their phones away and they engage in a prompt that may last 2 or 3, 4 days, some sort of experiment that they have to interrogate and interrogate with themselves. I deeply believe that if we were able to move to that model, not just in science, but in math, then I believe that you can turn folks on in that particular way. But it's curriculum design, lesson design, and then the competency of the teacher be able to help light the fires in your classrooms. If that makes sense.
Sure. Can you come up a little?
I actually have a
closer
response
the
to your
line?
previous question. And I want to contrast the situation here and in many other countries to the situation in countries like China, where they restrict the distractions. So a kid can't get on a video game in China within certain hours of school hours. They can't access misinformation the way we can here. If you're not a qualified expert, you cannot talk on a topic in China. If you go online and you put out harmful misinformation, the police will come and arrest you.
Can I say one more thing to you, to your question? Externally, we must send kids home from school with independent work to do, deep independent study that sets them up for classroom work. And so I would add to that, if we gave children the kind of work that matched their genius and also had heavy cognitive demand, we can eliminate those distractions. I just don't think we're committed to that.
So I know entrepreneurship and economic empowerment is a big thing for Black men, right? And also just as simple as a short-term rental here in New York City, we lost that with Airbnb. Huge loss. There were a lot of Black men who were actually making money through short-term rental, right? If they would have been civically engaged on a local level, probably we could have prevented that from happening. So what are some ways for us as Black men to see data points quickly to see how, if we do vote, it will benefit us economically, if that makes sense?
The local elections are going to get more, right? You get more immediate responses. You would be able to see some local races, right? Doesn't it?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I would say that as well, especially if we're putting people in office that we know, for example, and there is a lot of excitement about Mamdani taking office, right? And especially when he's saying we're going to freeze rent and rent stabilized housing. The other side of that is, what does that do for home ownership if you're going to freeze rent? You're just creating generational renters. And if we're talking about affordable housing, why aren't we making affordable housing affordable and making it so a point that people can actually purchase their housing versus being in a place of having to rent? So we need to look at the people that we're voting for and making sure that they're really addressing the issues that are going to affect us all, as opposed to just affecting, great sound bites, getting everybody excited. Yeah, I'm not going to have to pay rent. But on the other hand, you're holding your whole family back. Throughout history, landowners are wealthy, not renters. So we have to figure out a way to make affordable housing affordable so we can get more people affordable housing, but looking at what people are saying and voting for the people who are actually going to do something for us. Now, we didn't have two great choices. We had Mamdani, we had Cuomo, right? Thank you. And running for office. So, somebody else could have stepped up for sure. But I think it's really important that voices are heard, and it's not just enough to get elected, but also understanding that the people that we're putting in office are actually listening to what we're saying.
All right. I think that the question that you asked, the question that you asked makes a little bit of like an assumption. I think that you're in the question assuming that the people in power right now have not gathered the data in the same way that the rest of us have, and that they haven't seen the effect that these changes to Airbnb would have on our community. For example, the problem that people had with the rules changing with regards to Airbnb was that when people have their homes, Black homeowners, and they fall into hard financial times and can't make ends meet, one of the ways that they were holding on to their homes was by using Airbnb to rent spaces out. And that was how they were making ends meet and paying their mortgage. Now, people who are looking to gentrify some of these areas and saying, well, this person, Mr. Jenkins down the block, he's stopping me from having all this prime real estate, right? I'm going to make sure that the rules are more harsh towards Airbnb. I'm not going to tell you that I want to gentrify your neighborhood. I'm just going to do something like that where I can wash my hands of it and it looks like your neighborhood is getting gentrified. So I'm going to say, let's not always assume that they're in the dark about this about all of this analysis that I was able to sit on my computer and do in 10 minutes and be like, hey, how come all the politicians missed this? Sometimes they didn't miss it, and it is as nefarious as you're overlooking, right? You're overlooking the nefariousness. So that's my answer to your second question.
Thank you.
There was something in your question that got me thinking about the inherent flaw in believing that your vote is a transactional situation that comes back to you. And if I was having conversations with young people, I would start there. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't expect something. It just means that the system does not work in that way. And so it's a complex conversation to have that requires study and talking points. But I think I would want to convince people in that regard that your expectations for something to come back to you may not be necessarily founded because of the way the system is structured. But that doesn't mean you don't participate. It means you use it as an opportunity to intervene.
You have a question, two questions? Okay.
First, I want to say thank you. If anyone was saying, please come to the front. But I do want to ask a two-pronged question, and it's in regards to your thoughts or opinions, or you could even include feelings pertaining to expansion of job creation in the evolving economic ecosystem that we currently find ourselves in the evolving political economic ecosystem we currently find ourselves in. What is your opinion about that, in addition to expanding job creation of new evolving jobs and evolving and emerging markets with internships for those not eligible yet to vote, and also for those eligible to vote here in the United States of America, as well as how y'all may find that to solve what we're trying to find solvency for pertaining to voting. I also wanted to mention, I'm interested to find out what y'all think in regards to expanding privatized education affordably, as we may or may not think about very often pertaining to private education. For example, educational opportunities that are not afforded to those whom cannot afford the types of private education that I'm talking about, specifically private education that is readily accessible and available to the ultra-rich, such that communities that are not of an ultra-rich history or lineage can access that same quality of education. Please and thank you.
Okay, I'll answer this one, and I'll answer it in a way that also correlates to the topic that we're talking about right now, which is voting. I think that this administration, more than any others, have showed us how voting for the wrong person can have a negative correlation towards everything that we value. So the first issue that you spoke about was economics, right? Black employment and things like that, right? Donald Trump got in office, and Donald Trump started targeting all of the federal institutions that had the most black employees to get rid of. That's what Doge did, right? When they were saying waste, fraud, abuse, everything like that, they didn't come in and cut any waste and fraud. They targeted black areas of the federal government, areas where black females had the most jobs, areas where black people were thriving, areas where black people had job security and were awaiting their pensions. And they said, we don't need this section of the government anymore. Let's just cut it. We don't need that section of the government anymore. Let's just cut it. They didn't care what it did. They cared who held the job, right? And they cut those jobs. So that is a negative correlation between not paying attention to how racist somebody is and putting that racist person in office who is not savvy about the way he's going to do things. And he's just going to show us that this is something that helps black people, so I'm going to get rid of it, right? Let's talk about education. You mentioned education now. Black women have bridged the gap through all of the historical discrimination that they've faced through slavery, through all of the redlining, through all of the Jim Crow rules, through all of the separate but equal. And they have risen to the top. The number one educated demographic in America right now is the black female. You can look it up. All right. When Trump got in here, he didn't ignore that demographic. He said, I'm going to hire the dumbest person I can find. Well, let me not call her dumb or anything like that. I'm going to hire somebody who has nothing to do with education. I'm going to hire the head of wrestling to be in charge of the Department of Education. Your job in the Department of Education is not to preserve any of the educational institutions that have helped these black women thrive. Your job in the Department of Education is to start breaking it down, finding a way to phase things out, make it harder for black people to gain scholarships and things that put them ahead. That's what your job is. Any way he can make life harder for black people, that is what he is doing right now, okay? We have never seen a cause and effect of voting for the wrong candidate like we have seen with this president. I'm a criminal lawyer, right? There is a cause and effect when you don't use the rights that you have. One of the most common rights that people get before they incriminate themselves is the Miranda rights. It says you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, one will be provided to you. Anything you say here can and will be used against you. Would you like to talk to me? Now, most people, I mean, you would think it'd be common sense. Oh, wait, I have the right to an attorney. I have the right to remain silent. I should exercise that right. But most people don't. And they come in with the burden of innocence on them, and they leave with making incriminating statements that put themselves in jail for about 25 years. If you shut up and you exercise your rights, then you wouldn't be in that situation. I want us to look at voting rights the same way as those Miranda rights. If I'm telling you that this is a pivotal moment where you have the right to exercise a right that people fought for you to get, right? You didn't just have that right normally. Litigants had to go litigate. Black people had to get railroaded for years before they came to a point where they said, okay, now we need to advise you of your rights so that you don't get railroaded like all of these other black people. You should pay homage to those people by exercising that right. Let's treat voting rights just like that. That's the best way I could answer that question.
New York City is the most segregated school system in the country. And I have two thoughts that I would share with you around your question around education. For boys in particular, the trauma begins at 36 months, 48 months, 60 months, the minute they walk into a pre-K program, the minute they register for kindergarten, they are under sustained and systemic attack the minute they walk into those buildings. So when you ask why do black men or should black men vote, their journey from boyhood to manhood is, particularly when they engage the school system, is replete with trauma. And it's something that folks don't talk about, will not talk about, and they will not talk about the fact that boys behave quite differently than girls when they face trauma in the school system. And so that's something that we need to make sure that we address. So what I advocate is that black boys come up out of that system as much as possible, and that we work with whatever politician that we need to work with to make sure that boys are protected in school so that they can grow to get to the point where we're having this conversation, and then address, quite honestly, the gaps that one of our panelists was talking about, but also use that as an opportunity to close the economic gaps that they're seeing. But if we're not addressing what happens to boys at 36 months, you register your kid for that pre-K program, in my opinion, after seeing schools across America, your kid is in danger. Your boy in particular is in danger. Your girl has a chance to survive. Your boy, those chances to survive are far less.
I want to support what he just said. Not only that, I homeschooled my kids. After I saw what happened in kindergarten, that I saw grade 1, I took my kids out of school for years. So I have 4 kids, they're all grown now, and I homeschooled each of them for years. You know, my first son, my older son, he didn't go back to school until he took the test and went to Stuyvesant for high school. I just, I saw exactly what he described so accurately.
It happens a lot, especially here in New York City.
Yep.
We do have a couple of internet questions, so I'm going to pose this to you, and then we do have some more questions here in the audience. So before we wrap everything up, Advocacy Arena is asking, how do you advise black men to navigate the propaganda around their vote and voting?
I would advise them to look to credible sources when they are seeking out information on voting. So if you're looking if you're looking for information on who you should vote for, why you should vote for them, or policies, or something that seems controversial, and it's coming from a website that you've never heard of before, or a news site that you've never heard of before, chances are it's fake. It's an AI post, or it's something that's designed to mislead you that's put out around election time. I would advise you to go to a source that you trust. If that's CNN, go to CNN. If that's MSNBC, get your news from MSNBC. Check the newspapers to say, hey, is this true that XYZ? Google is your friend also. A quick Google search will let you know whether something is true or not. So utilize the tools at your discretion and at your fingertips, and don't just believe the first ridiculous thing that you read and run and tell 50 people about that.
Stay out of the barbershop intellectual conversations. That doesn't get you anything. There's cats out there that are bugging, just wild. Read, research, stop talking to peers who confirm the bullshit that you think. Read beyond that, interrogate your own self. Get up out of that habit of fellowship with cats who you shouldn't even be talking to other than, can you line me up? Period. And I hate to sound elitist, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Totally justified, because the misinformation impact on us is so heavy, and the situation now is so dire. It's not something you can really talk about in diplomatic terms. It's a very serious situation.
One more question. How and where can black men get involved civically, locally?
I mentioned that Run for Something website, runforsomething.com. Take a look at that website and think about maybe your local community board would have you just getting involved beyond just sitting there waiting, hoping somebody will present you with a candidate. We're not entitled to get great candidates. Some people are going to run, most of us aren't. if you look at the list of candidates and you see, you know, I really don't like this list, think about running for something yourself.
The National Advocate Network is not going to knock on your door. I mean, maybe they will, but you can go
I'm
to
gonna knock on your door. I don't know what he's talking
no, you can, but you know what I mean. You can meet them halfway. Why have them come out there just to knock on your door when you can go down there? The Women League, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but the Women League of Voters, they publish a comprehensive a guide on how to get involved in the American political system. You can go there, right? But if you're waiting for someone to give you something in terms of information, the battle is half lost, right? Yes, it's great that you're going to get a knock on your door from this young brother right here, but that doesn't suffice. You have to go out and pull the information down instead of waiting for the information to be pushed to you. And quite frankly, that's a much better learning opportunity than to wait for somebody to come tell you something.
I want to say something specifically about the most popular form of information right now, which is viral videos on social media. It is the lowest form of information in existence. It's terrible. It's very, very unreliable. And my friends know not to send me videos. I get seriously vexed when they do that. Do not send me any video. Send me text. Send me a list of who compiled the text, what was their agenda, and then I'll go and check multiple sources and things of that sort. But don't send me videos. You know, and anybody that's providing you information only in the form of these viral videos, you cannot trust that source.
I would also throw in the memes, right, they're designed to get you to think about something through some sort of quote, which is usually nonsense. And so stop that as well.
Good points. We have a question here in the back.
So question is, should black men vote? Answer is a resounding yes. I think you reframed the question with, what do we want in return for our vote? And to ask that and to answer that. For example, if you are filming or shooting a TV show or a movie or anything north of 110th Street, you need to use Hollywood studios. It's a requirement. That's elected officials respond to constituents. So if the constituency said that's something that we want, you tell them. They will respond to that. They will find a way to create a law, an amendment to accommodate that request and answer to their constituents.
What's your question, John?
No, I wanted to make sure I got on the.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Hollywood.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you so much, John, for that. It's certainly, Kassan is doing amazing work with Harlem Studios, so it would be great to have him do everything north of 110.
The second gentleman, I don't know your name, I don't remember, is it Mike? Mike? Yeah, you had mentioned that you were on the fence at one point. I was just curious to why were you on the fence?
I've been on the fence because I've been seeing that politicians would promise certain things, and once they get into office, it doesn't happen. Like, I still got to pay my student loans. I mean, it's more bigger issues than that, but yeah, it's just broken promises. That's why I was on the fence.
Are you still on the fence?
I will honestly say I need to go back and do more research and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just my answer right now.
Okay. Are you still on the fence, young man?
He's doing his research.
I'll play.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
I think we got through to this young man. He said he's gonna go do his research. That's all we can ask of you guys. Do your research, fellas.
I would say very importantly, don't just look at the politicians. Just look at the Supreme Court, look at the judiciary, look at the different levels of government, look at the big picture.
I think he's representative of a lot of people in Harlem, though. I think that perspective is representative of a lot of people. I don't think people are as naive as some of you guys are saying they are. I think they're just used to feeling that their perspectives are not being met with the promises being fulfilled the way they're supposed to be fulfilled by politicians. They're just not have faith in politicians. And I noticed to be true about people in my family and other people that I know in the community. You know, I grew up in this community. I've been in this community for 50 years. And I know a lot of people, a lot of the local politicians, people just don't trust them. And that's just a fact of life. And we need to, you know, the question is it necessary? I mean, is it a valid point? You know, it could be in some cases and not in others. But this is something that really needs to be addressed. If you really want more people to vote, you have to address that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions from the audience? You certainly can.
Thank you. I feel that sometimes when people have certain things in place, we get complacent. And we don't always feel like, well, you know, this is working, that's working. Maybe it's not that important. And that's something that we need to think about. Even if things are okay, they can always be better. And there are a lot of things that we as a Black community haven't had access to. And God knows we've been able to make $1 out of 15 cents, but we shouldn't be complacent. Okay? Until we get, not until, but we should never be complacent in regard to voting and things that improve our community.
Any comments on that?
Yes, the complacency about voting rights for me is dramatic. Black people are much more complacent about voting rights now than they were when I was born. Yeah, I was born a few months before the Voting Rights Act, and it is now essentially dead at age 61. I'm 61. And the level of fight among Black people is pretty much zero for voting rights, and the consequences of that is catastrophic. So a bill, the Republicans just passed a bill in the House requiring passports to vote. Trump gets all your personal information. I mean, just a whole bunch of horrifying provisions. It is poised to pass in the Senate. At any point they're going to pass it. And at that point, I feel like we're just sliding into racist dictatorship. You know, I just don't see a way back from that. They can see the polls. They can see they're going to lose any type of fair election. Even with all the racist gerrymandering and rolling back the voting rights, they can see that's probably not going to be enough. So they have this bill, they've already passed it through the House, it's going through the Senate now, and Trump is ramping up the pressure on the Republicans. About 40 out of the 50-something of them are ready to vote for this right now. But there's like a dozen of them that don't want to do it because they understand what it means.
Also, don't forget the SAVE Act.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly
So
what
if you get married,
Yes.
and your name is different.
Yes.
And even though you've been voting since you were 18, and when I was in high school, the League of Women Voters came to my high school and registered everyone to vote. And so things like that, that people don't realize how bad it is.
Yes. That's the complacency you described.
Yep.
Right.
And again, that stems from a lack of knowledge about what the acts actually will do. The SAVE Act is nothing but a poll tax, right? It tells you that in order to vote, you're going to have to prove that you're a citizen. And it's not sufficient to do that with your driver's license. They want you to get a passport. Now, the standard passport is almost $200. So for people in poorer sections of the community, they can't afford that, right? What does that do? That disenfranchises a large part of the voting electorate, of the voting population, right? Specifically, those people that are closer to 18, just graduating from college, have a summer job or something like that, they're not going to be able to afford to do that. So we have to do our research before we support any kind of bill like that.
But
Thank you for you.
Also, the SAVE Act impacts women, and more women vote than men.
Yes.
That's true.
And so doing something like that disenfranchises a lot of women, especially if you changed your name when you got married. So that cuts those off. There's a lot of rights rising back as well. And I know this as a black woman. I at the intersection of race and gender, women's rights rise and back to the point where women are literally dying because of this administration. And so that's the way women to not for women to not be able to defend themselves. So they want to take us back to 1919 and prior to Reconstruction when black people could vote.
I want to say thank you so much to our amazing panel here today. this has been such a wonderful conversation to have, and I'm sure it's one that's going to continue throughout the living rooms of everyone who's been watching, as well as the audience here. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And thank you again to Kassan Henry and Harlemwood Studios for putting this great production together. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, Dose. We have another performance by Dose Santana. Thank you, Dose.
Thank you.
Shout outs to everybody in the building. Shout out to everybody in the building. I hope y'all have a good time. There's food in the back. There's some water. Get some good energy. There's food in the back. Don't leave with no plate, please. Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay, sir. God bless. Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah. Back in the mall. We all done it. Forever again. We ain't. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. Like, back in the mall. We all done it. Forever again. All I need is a good play. Steady sacrificing time, staying out the way. Fam come first, shoes looking sweet. How you saying I'm mad, my daughter getting paid? Hey, sit down, talk about it. Lord's conversation with niggas with no knowledge. 2017, I'm skimming right out of college. 2023, you right, I still got it, what's poppin'? Focus on getting my bread, get in the head, sitting no feet on my bed. Just want some dress, all I do it instead. Getting more what I'm doing with less, all I take it with stress. Being right, but I'm hitting the left. Smell good, but they call me the chef. Upgraded, but I smell good, I ain't rocking with pets. Upgraded, I ain't settled for less. Let's go, y'all. Yeah. Like this. Pack in the mall, we all done it. Forever being good. We ain't friend now. Yes, sir. Today was a nice day. Like, pack in the mall, we all done it. Forever being we ain't, health is good, credit is right. But the vibe is right. Spin the block, can't spin it twice. Been a ride, so who ready to ride? Man, I'm good with the fake facade. Know better when I'm doing my job. Stand up when they giving applause to the Don daughter. The real that became fathers. I speak good when I make a dollar. Holla. And that's it, y'all. That something's called Forever Good. It's out now. My time is done. These hosts sent me a podcast. Shout out to everybody in the building. Yes, it's very good, really nice. There's food in the back, wood on the back. If you gotta use the bathroom, it's straight to your left. Yes, indeed. This has been a beautiful day. Until next time. Yes, thank you. Clap it up, y'all. Clap it up. Shout out to everybody in the book. Clap it up. A beautiful day. Thank you. Clap it up for yourself. Shout out to everybody. Thank you. And we out.